I've chilling true stories that will haunt you. Forever, sometimes the scariest stories aren't the ones found in horror movies. They're the ones that actually happened. Tonight, we're diving into tales so horrifying they'll make your skin crawl and your heart race. These are real, terrifying events that defy logic, leaving you questioning the safety of the world around you. Imagine camping in the woods with your closest friends, the only light coming from the flickering flames of a campfire. The air is crisp, the stars above unreasonably bright. The perfect getaway, right? Until you hear it, a distant, blood-curdling scream slicing through the quiet night. At first, you think it might be an animal, but then you hear it again, closer this time, unmistakably human. Panic sets in. No one dares to move. Suddenly, the sound of snapping branches gets louder, and before you know it, a figure emerges from the shadows. They're covered in blood, their eyes wide with terror. They collapse at your feet, mumbling incoherently about being chased. You look around, but there's no sign of their attacker. Just darkness pressing in on all sides. You pack up and leave immediately, but that night stays with you forever. A chilling reminder that the wilderness isn't always serene. Small towns have their charm until they don't. There's a story about a quaint village that's been abandoned for decades. Locals claim it's cursed, but no one really knows why. A group of urban explorers decided to check it out, hoping for some cheap thrills. They wandered through the crumbling houses, taking pictures and laughing at the eerie atmosphere. Then they found a house that didn't seem as old as the others. The furniture inside was strangely clean, like someone had just dusted it. On the dining table were plates of food, still warm, though no one had been seen entering the village for years. Feeling uneasy, the group decided to leave. But as they walked back to their car, they heard the sound of laughter echoing from behind them. Turning around, they saw figures standing in the windows of the house they just left. The figures didn't move, didn't wave, just stared. The group fled, leaving behind their gear and never returning. To this day, no one knows who or what lives in that cursed village. Ever feel like someone's watching you? That gut-wrenching sensation isn't just paranoia. A young woman in a suburban neighborhood thought her house was haunted when she started noticing small, unsettling changes. Lights she swore she'd turned off were suddenly on. Her phone charger went missing and reappeared in the living room. Doors were slightly ajar when she was sure she'd closed them. One night she woke up to the sound of faint breathing. Thinking it was just her mind playing tricks on her, she rolled over and tried to go back to sleep. But then she felt it, a cold hand brushing against her leg. She screamed, grabbed her phone, and turned on the flashlight. No one was there. Shaken, she checked the locks, bolted every window, and double-checked the doors before going back to bed. A week later, she discovered a hidden crawl space in her attic. Inside, she found a makeshift bed, wrappers from her food, and a journal. Someone had been living there for months, watching her every move. The police never found the intruder, leaving her to deal with the haunting knowledge that she'd been so close to danger. Road trips can be liberating, but they can also be straight-up horrifying. A couple driving cross-country decided to take a scenic route through the desert. The sun was setting, and the landscape turned from breathtaking to unsettling as the shadows grew longer. They hadn't seen another car for miles when they spotted a figure on the side of the road. It was a man waving them down, his face hidden by the brim of his hat. Against their better judgment, they pulled over. He said his car had broken down a few miles back and asked for a ride to the nearest gas station. Something about him didn't sit right, but they agreed to help. As the man climbed into the back seat, the woman noticed his hands were filthy, caked in what looked like dried blood. She glanced at her husband, who was already pulling back onto the road, and whispered her concerns. The man in the back laughed, a low, guttural sound, and said, "It's not mine." Her blood ran cold. She turned around to confront him, but the back seat was empty. The car swerved as her husband yelled in shock. They stopped and searched, but there was no sign of the man. They drove the rest of the way in silence, hearts pounding, and vowed never to stop for anyone again. There's something about basements that scream, "Don't go down there," but curiosity always gets the best of us. A man inherited an old house from a distant relative he barely knew. It was a fixer-upper, and he figured he could flip it for a profit. As he was cleaning out the basement, he found a door hidden behind a stack of boxes. The door was padlocked, but the key was hanging on a nail nearby. Against his better judgment, he unlocked it and stepped inside. The room was small, with walls lined with shelves of old jars filled with cloudy liquids. In the center of the room was a table covered in what looked like occult symbols. As he backed out of the room, something slammed the door shut behind him. He screamed, pounded on the door, but it wouldn't budge. Then he heard it, a voice whispering his name. When the door finally opened on its own, he bolted upstairs and never went back down. He sold the house as is, warning the buyers never to open the basement door. The truth is, the world is full of horrifying stories, and most of them don't have happy endings. Whether it's the unknown lurking in the shadows or the sinister intentions of other people, these tales remind us that danger is everywhere. Sometimes it's better not to know what's hiding in the dark, because once you've seen it, you can never unsee it. Stay safe and remember, the scariest things in life are the ones we can't explain.